The United States has gone on this massive blitz of trying to turn the entire coronavirus into a Chinese thing, using all kinds of derogatory terms like the Kung flu, the Wuhan flu, the flu, the China disease, etc. And this has all manifested itself in all kinds of racism against all kinds of Asians, not even just Chinese people. And of course, Canada's no exception. We're getting attacks on Asians because every Asian person is Chinese, apparently, according to these, stupid racists. Look at the example of the guy who went on a tirade in Australia with, what was it, a bullwhip outside the Chinese consulate? Just whipping everywhere and insulting Chinese people, death to communism. The communists gave us this, all kinds of, complete and utter nonsense. Well, the part about it being a communist conspiracy is nonsense. The part about it being Chinese is racist. I mean, this is completely nonsensical. But this is happening because the Western powers, the United States primarily, to a lesser extent Australia, a lesser extent the UK, and Canada, I'm not so entirely sure that the Canadian government is going along with it. Wouldn't be surprised if it is. Are trying to push it as though this is China's fault. This is China's disease. China, 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 China. All the time. And the reason for it is fairly obvious. This is about demonizing a global competitor. Obviously, we see the empire of China rising and the empire of the United States falling. Even more so now. More so now than ever. But we're also seeing something else. When everybody was attacking China for what they called draconian measures in dealing with the COVID-19 outbreak, denouncing them as terrible fascists, oh, look, here's this thing where nothing, no evidence for a claim, etc. exists, and believing it, and believing the worst, and even just making things up. But even when the real draconian measures, quarantining entire cities, forcing people to stay in apartment buildings, one person was affected, they quarantined the entire apartment building, nobody was allowed to come in and out, etc. All of that, the stuff that actually existed, was correct. That's why they've got this under control, and they were the freaking epicenter of this. And now look at New York. It's getting ready to fall apart. And how it keeps growing. You can go check them. There's multiple websites that track how many people have COVID-19 and how many people have died from it in the United States and the rest of the world. And how much those numbers are growing. Because of, frankly, government inaction. So when people start pointing to China and say, yeah, that's kind of what we should be doing. Because it works. Powers that be here, that being the capitalist class and its representatives within the government, don't like it when you point out when they're not doing a good job. And that's the problem. So what we're looking at is not only a creation of racism, and I think it's important to point out here that the system doesn't want to create racism. It wants to demonize China and its handling because it's a competitor, because it's done such a better job. But the side effect of that is racism. If China was a country that was predominantly white, they would be demonizing it just as much for being a global competitor and doing a better job. But the fact that they are predominantly Han Chinese is going to manifest itself in racism. What's important here is that racism doesn't create imperialism. Imperialism is an economic phenomenon. Imperialism creates racism. Now, you can go to the whole history of racism, how it came up through slaveholding society, etc., and that it wasn't really it was actually economically created. It wasn't like an inborn thing, as some white supremacists like to claim, that people are naturally racist or some kind of nonsense like that. It's something that came about as an economic phenomenon, one of the worst diseases of the human condition that has come about as a result of economic relations. So what's important here, I mean, I don't have to tell you, my audience, not to be racist a-holes. You already know that, and you're already not racist a-holes. I'm sure there's probably one or two out there somewhere, because there's one in every crowd. So I kind of preach into the choir here. But for those out there who might see this that aren't Marxists, you're playing into the game of the elite and trying to push war, try to push, economic warfare on China by going along with this. Scientifically, China did not cause this. China's, so-called wet markets did not create this. Even the U.S. government says so. This is a natural thing that happens with viruses. They mutate. There's nothing new here in that regard. So when you see racism out there because of that, you correct them. This isn't something China did. It's something that happens as a result of science. Well, not science that created it, but the science of, viruses mutating. But I think it's really important to point out and to get the information out there to people who don't know that this is part of a plot to demonize China, simply as a global economic competitor. And then when you do stupid racist things, you're just helping them with that. And a lot of these people are against the powers that be because conspiracy or don't tell me what to do, etc. And yet when situations like this occur, they seem so happy and so happy to be blindly following the interests of that system in order to demonize its competitors. Because a lot of this stuff already goes along with a lot of the prejudiced views they already have. And frankly, that's not okay. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.